You know you need to send a newsletter. You've heard it 100 times. So you sit down on, let's say, a Tuesday night after dinner, you open up your email platform and you just stare at it. The blank template, the blinking cursor. You have no idea what to say. So you close the tab, tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow turns into next week, and next week turns into next month. And now it has been 2 months since your subscribers heard from you. Does that sound familiar? That is exactly what we are tackling today. So, hey, welcome to Hey Tori, the podcast where I answer real digital marketing questions from quilters, crafters, and creative entrepreneurs just like you. I am Tori McElwain, digital marketing coach, quilter, and every episode I take a real question or struggle and walk you through exactly how I would coach it. So, today we're talking about newsletters, specifically how to make your newsletter efficient, how to stop dreading it, and start sending it consistently without eating up your whole day. So, let's get into it. So this question comes up constantly, and I recently had a 30-minute free session, which you can get with the link below. But one of her hangups was her newsletter. And she paused while telling me this. And she said, this would make a good subject for your podcast. So, Maria, if you're listening, thank you so much for the subject. I don't have a lot of context from Maria herself. So I'm going to be talking about newsletters to a general clientele, things that I have heard from a lot of my clients and in coaching and group coaching in our community, in our quilting community in general. So it usually sounds like a question around this would probably sound something like, Tori, I need to send a newsletter, but every time I sit down to write one, I spend 2 hours on it and it still doesn't feel right. I do not know what to include. I don't know how long it should be. By the time I finally hit send, I'm so burned out that I do not want to do it again for another month. How do the big companies send emails every single day? I can barely do it once a month. And I want you to hear this because if you have ever felt that way, you are not alone. This is one of the most common struggles I see. And the good news is you do not need to send emails every day. You do not need to be Target. You do not need to be Crumble Cookies. You just need to be you. And I'm going to show you exactly how to make that sustainable. Okay, so let me start by naming what's actually happening here, or what I think might be, is the reason your newsletter tends to take forever is not because you are bad at writing. It is because you are starting from scratch every single time. At least a lot of my clients do. So you sit down with a blank page, there's no structure, no plan. You're trying to figure out what to say, how to format it all at once. And it's exhausting. So of course it takes you multiple hours, maybe an entire day just to write your newsletter. So you can compare that to, let's say, a big brand. Let's go back to that Target or Crumble Cookie example. Like those companies, they send emails every day, sometimes more than once a day. But here's the thing. They have an entire marketing team. They already have templates made and ready to go. They have a calendar mapped out months in advance, maybe even years in advance. And they're not sitting down every day going, what should we email about today? They have all these systems in place. So we want to use those components and tweak them a bit for our own businesses. So you're a one-person business. Most of my clients are. Some of them have VAs, which is awesome, but you are not sending daily emails typically. For a personal brand, and I do mean personal brand, which is what most quilting and crafting businesses are, once a week is great if you can swing it. Twice a month is the minimum I would suggest, but keep in mind consistently and not volume is the key. And the way you get consistent is with systems. But before we talk about systems, I want to talk about something that matters even more in our industry, and that is the personal brand piece. So here is what makes your newsletter different from a box store's, right? So Target's emails, they come from a corporation, but yours comes from you. And that is your biggest advantage. So when someone on your list opens your newsletter, I always feel like as a personal brand, they should feel like they are reading a letter from a friend. You don't want to read it, you don't want to write it like you're a blast from a box store, right? You're one person writing to one person. That's the energy we're bringing for our newsletter. And that is actually a lot easier to write than if you try to think of it as it has to be a polished, like corporate email. So once you give yourself permission to sound like you, hopefully that comes a lot easier. So your subscribers, keep in mind, they signed up to hear from you because they want to hear from you. They want your perspective. They want your stories, your recommendations. They love your style. They love your brand and what you're putting out in the world, and they want to hear more about it. They're not expecting perfectly curated everything, right? But they are just expecting you. So some of my favorite emails to open are from Beth Ann Williams, and she is a quilting teacher. She has a background in working in all kinds of different niches within the industry, and I love her emails because it feels like she's writing to me. She writes very personally. She just shares what's going on. She shares her classes coming up. She shares just a couple of fun tips. She likes to share her YouTube channel currently. Currently, she's building that up. She's building up her YouTube channel. So it's been fun watching her on her journey. It's been fun watching her develop her classes and picking up on her rhythm of her year. So Beth Ann Williams is so much fun to follow, and you can find her on YouTube. She's really fun. She's so encouraging too. Let's go into how to build your own template. So here's the system part. It starts with 2 questions, and this question, and both of them, I would love for you to sit down a couple of times a year and really ask yourself this, especially if you're hitting that wall of, ugh, I don't want to write this newsletter. Okay, so the first question is, what is the goal of your newsletter? And the second question is, what do you offer and what are your values? Those 2 questions are going to shape the sections of your template. So let me break it down. So question 1, what is the goal of your newsletter? So this matters more than you think because the goal tells you what has to be in every single newsletter. So if your goal is sales, meaning you want your newsletter to drive traffic or revenue every week, then every issue needs to have a product or an offer in it. It could be a pattern you're selling, a class coming up, a trunk show, a motif of the week if you're a long arm quilter, or a story of the quilt you just finished as a long arm quilter, whatever it is, whatever you're selling, there needs to be a section in your newsletter that shares what you're selling. So everything else in that newsletter will support that. And so if your goal is connection, meaning you want your newsletter to build a relationship and trust with your audience, then your anchor is probably more towards stories. So stories from your creating life, from your business, from your personal life. It's up to you and what you're comfortable with sharing when it comes to your personal life. When I'm sharing about personal life, I keep it very broad. Um, but I think it does help anchor stories in context. You don't have to get too personal, but that's up to you. And connection also means interaction. So it's asking questions and then sharing the answers. It's highlighting what other cool businesses or people in the community are doing that your audience would love to know about. Now, most of you, your goal is probably a mix of both, and that is totally fine. But knowing where your emphasis falls helps you decide what goes in the template. Okay. And then question 2, what do you offer and what are your values? So this is where we get a little more practical too. So, because your offers and your values can literally become sections of your newsletter. So, let me give you some examples. Let's say one of your company values is creativity. So, you could have a reoccurring section where you share something that inspires your audience to create or explore. Maybe a technique you tried, a new color combination that surprised you, maybe a new tool you picked up. That section comes back every time. It could also be a practice, a meditation. It could be a cookie recipe, something that gets them a little more creative and out of the sewing room. Because when we're creative in any part of our life, it helps impact our creativity in our craft, right? So that section can come back every time, and you never have to wonder what to include. You just fill it in. Or let's say you sell patterns and you teach classes. So you could have a section called something like Pattern of the Week or What's in my EQ8 this week, and give your audience sneak peeks of what you're designing. And then a separate section for upcoming classes or Class of the Week. So I love like sneak peek type things. If you are worried about because I know there is a worry that IP can be leaked early. People can steal pattern ideas. People can steal all kinds of things. What I would do in that case is to really up close stuff or really fast moving things or something where where you have like a little mascot. So one of my favorite marketing things that happened was with someone who wasn't even a marketer. At least I don't know if she was in any part of her day job or anything, but in quilting, she loved being a pattern tester. So one thing that she did was she had secret squirrel quilting. Now she doesn't do this anymore, but I loved when she did it. She did it for like, I don't know, 3 years or so, like a long time. And every time I see these little stuffed squirrels pop up, I knew it was her. And I knew that she was doing secret squirrel quilting. And you would see the squirrels pinning, you would see them holding scraps, you would see them out in the garden relaxing because they just finished a big secret sewing project. She had a lot of fun with these little squirrels, and it was just a fun way to remind people that she's there, she's working, and she's got some really cool stuff coming up. So finding a way to kind of give those sneak peeks without giving a lot away can be really fun. But the point is, having these themed sections that repeat every issue or every month, it makes it so much easier. So you're not reinventing the wheel, you're filling in the blanks. So here's what I would encourage you to do. I would encourage you to build a newsletter template with plug in areas. So your template might look something like this: a short personal note at the top, maybe 2 or 3 sentences max, or it could be longer. It's up to you. That is your one person to one person moment. Then your theme sections. So maybe it's a product spotlight and an inspiration share. Maybe it's a class update or behind the scenes sneak peek. Maybe it's a story and a question for your audience, whatever fits your goals and your values. And then at the bottom, your consistent call to action. So shop here, book here, reply to this email, follow me here. And that can be the same every time. But once you have that template built in your email service provider, all you have to do each week or each month is to fill in the sections. So you're not designing from scratch. You are not starting from a blank page. You are plugging in your content and hitting send. Okay, so here's a note on length because that's a big question. So I know a lot of you are asking, like, how long should it be? And the answer is it depends on you and your audience. So mine tends to be long. I'll be honest about that. I value learning, I value education. I want to share lessons that I've learned about marketing and business. And sometimes I bring in um, lessons about life. I also want to share things like podcasts and blogs and resources that can help them build up their marketing, build up their business, build up their classes, because I also have a bit of the teaching arm to my business when I wrote the book, How to Workshops Unleashed, how to create engaging and successful workshops. So my newsletter reflects that. It reflects how I have a library of resources that anybody could go to. In my blog, I have a podcast that I continuously release. It's called Quilting on the Side. And I also have life lessons I want to share. And then I also have a section where I'm sharing what's selling, right? Where I make my money. Here's a few other examples. So my client, Monica, who you've heard about on the podcast before, she has a newsletter that alternates between 2 themes. She sends it twice a month. I believe it's twice a month. It may be every week, and then the theme switches. So one to the next, one to the next. It keeps it fresh for her audience and it keeps it manageable for her. And then there's Lynn Christensen. Lynn keeps hers very short and sweet. It's kind of like she has, no, I haven't like got this directly from her. This is my observation from getting her newsletter. She has like a little personal thing at the top, like again, like that little personal note. And then she has several things that she's doing, participating in that her audience can look into and value. And above that is like a short paragraph. It's like 2 to 3 sentences. She keeps it short and sweet, and that's been her style, and her audience responds to that. Monica's, on the other hand, that I share, she switches between the 2 themes. Hers is relatively longer. It's like sitting down with a magazine article and taking some time to read through it. So there's a style to it, and it's your style. So inside the DMMC, we do have a section called Evaluate Your Newsletter. So it helps you go through your metrics and evaluate what newsletters are doing well, where people are clicking, because many, at least on the back end of MailerLite, there's a really great way that they show metrics where you can see where people are clicking. So you know what they're clicking on, what they're engaging with. And we take time to really look at the back end and look at your metrics. But then we also take a second to sit down and think about those 2 questions, right? And then we build out a template. And we use that template week after week, month after month as a personal brand. And then when it's time to launch, that is paused. We run the launch, and then she can keep, and then she keeps going, right? That's the plan. Now, some of my members, they continuously send a newsletter no matter what. And when a launching email is supposed to go out on a newsletter day, so a day that they send that newsletter, the part of the launch that was supposed to go, or not supposed to, but generally goes during that time, would go inside the newsletter. So it would just be an added section to their newsletter. So I would encourage you to look at what might be possible when you stop treating your newsletter like a creative writing assignment and start treating it more like a system. Do you have those plug and play areas? Okay, so here's your Hey Tori takeaway. I want you to grab something to write with. I want you to answer and journal those two questions. Like, really take some time to sit down and think about it. Question 1, what is the goal of my newsletter? Question 2, what do I offer and what do I value? And write those answers down. Then take 5 minutes and sketch out the sections of your newsletter and create a template based on those answers. So I would suggest a personal note at the top, a few themed sections in the middle, like 2 or 3, and some kind of call to action at the bottom. Now, there's a little more that goes into writing a newsletter that we could talk about when it comes to consistent sales and what little things go where that make it, impact a little bit better. But this is the general outline that most personal brands are using. They're finding it easier to be consistent. And all you have to do is build this container. And once that container exists, then you just fill it and it gets so much faster. So this could take you, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 if you want to take some really hard look at your values, because that can take a little bit longer. But that is your job after listening to this audience. So if this episode hit close to home, if you've been dreading your newsletter or avoiding it altogether, I want you to know that this is exactly the kind of thing we dig into inside the digital marketing coaching program. We do not just talk about newsletters in theory, we actually build a template. And in stage 1 of the program, one of your action steps is literally create a newsletter template and get to know your email service provider. And then later in stage 4, we take a whole focus and finesse section where you evaluate your last 6 newsletters or more and adjust your content strategy based on what is actually working. It's a real system. So my members get coaching, a step-by-step roadmap, and access to all the AI tools I've been talking about throughout this podcast. And the best way to see if the DMMC is a good fit for you is to book that free 30-minute strategy session that I mentioned at the start of this episode. There's no pressure there. There's no pitch, just clarity on your next steps. And the link is in the show notes. I will let you know that the DMMC is closing on March 31st and will not reopen until the fall. Unless you're in person at H&H, I do have an opportunity for you to join in person, but online it will be closed until the fall. And right now, if you join in the month of March, or if you book that free 30-minute strategy session with me in April, I will still honor this bonus, which is the Creatives Clarity Report. And it is a snapshot of how your business shows up online in searchability. So we're talking SEO and GEO, and it's a great bonus. So if you want to take a look at that and what that entails, there is a link below. You can also find it linked on the DMMC sales page. So you can go ahead and take a look at all that information. And I hope you book a 30-minute strategy session with me. I'd love to talk more about your business. And if you do have another question for me to answer on a future episode, please send it in. I only have a few more days left, but I'd love to hear from you. So until next time, keep creating, keep marketing, and remember, you do not have to figure this out alone. Talk soon.